Good evening. Good evening. Hello, everyone. I hope you're dry. Happy that you made it through the downpour and the heat. A warm welcome to all of you to the Harvard Art Museums. I'm delighted to welcome you to tonight's really extraordinary program, the Grand Illustrated Lecture and Magic Lantern Show, presented by Richard Balzer, who is also, I just learned recently, a lender to the exhibition upstairs, and I hope many of you have had a chance to see the exhibition already. Tonight is the second event inspired by our newest exhibition, the Philosophy Chamber, Art and Science in Harvard's Teaching Cabinet. And you are in for a very special experience. In a moment, I'll call up Ethan Lasser, the exhibition's curator, to introduce our speaker. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about this unusual exhibition and how it came to be. Equal parts laboratory, picture gallery, and lecture hall, the Philosophy Chamber was an 18th century space of knowledge and inquiry, supporting teaching and critical conversations inspired by wondrous and potent objects. We can see in such object-based teaching the legacy of what we do in this building today, where works of art act as portals through which we can explore our world from many different perspectives. This exhibition conjures a time when science and art intersected, when inquiring minds roamed across the boundaries of disciplines in a way that resonates with the multifaceted way our students and faculty want to think and learn today. As is often true here at the Harvard Art Museums, this project was catalyzed by collaboration, in this case by a fall 2014 seminar co-taught by curator Ethan Lasser and history of art professor Jennifer Roberts. Together, they challenged themselves and their students to identify and investigate linkages between art and science, local and global, past and present. In the end, many of the students in the seminar also contributed to the excellent catalog that accompanies the exhibition. The curator of this exhibition is Ethan Lasser, head of the Division of European and American Art, and who is also our Theodore E. Stebbins Jr. Curator of American Art. From the time he arrived at Harvard, Ethan has shown a keen interest in the university as collector, and the present exhibition sheds an exciting new light on this subject. I'd like to acknowledge that a project like this required the hard work of many people, as well as the generosity of our sponsors and lenders. Critical support for the exhibition and catalog, as well as for tonight's program, were provided by the Terra Foundation for American Art and the Luce Foundation. And we are very grateful for this funding, which allowed us to think ambitiously about this project, and which also permits the Philosophy Chamber exhibition to travel, when it closes in Cambridge, to the Hunterian Museum at the University of Glasgow. Those of you who know that institution will understand what a great partner that is for a project like this, as the Hunterian was founded as a great European teaching cabinet, a great Wunderkammer, very much inspired by some of the same aspirations as the Philosophy Chamber. And now, it's my great pleasure to turn things over to Ethan Lasser, who will introduce tonight's program and our distinguished speaker. Ethan.
Well, thanks, Martha, and welcome, everyone. Particular special welcome to all the kids in the audience tonight. We're really happy to have you. You're in for a treat. And I will just take a moment to say a word about the show upstairs, which I hope most people have seen, and then I'll introduce Richard Balzer. So to begin with the Philosophy Chamber, the show reassembles a small portion of the collection that Harvard assembled between 1766 and 1820. And like the British and European teaching cabinets or university or academic collections that formed during this period, Harvard's included a veritable cross-section of 18th century art and material culture. Portraits and prints by then contemporary artists like John Singleton Copley, scientific instruments like this extraordinary electrical machine made in London, whose large wheel you could rotate to generate a spark, the electrical fire, for various experiments. And then there were lots of objects collected abroad, pieces of Hawaiian featherwork like this helmet, polished marbles from the Grand Tour, plaster casts after ancient sculptures, all coming to Harvard to Cambridge in this late 18th century period. And originally, this collection, this wide-ranging collection was housed in a set of 3 rooms adjacent to the college library on the 2nd floor of Harvard Hall. That's the building with the cupola. Still stands on the yard today. You can go and see it. This is Paul Revere's 1767 engraving of the colleges at Cambridge. And when Revere made this print, Harvard Hall was a brand new building. It stood erected on the site of a wooden structure that had been consumed in a devastating fire. And here we can go inside into the rooms on the 2nd floor of Harvard Hall, the library, and then these 3 smaller rooms for the collection. There was the apparatus chamber at the top, the small university museum. These were really storage rooms. And then at right, the heart of our project, this larger room called the Philosophy School, or the Philosophy Chamber, named not for philosophy as we know it, but for natural philosophy, a field that wove together the sciences that sought to explain the natural world. And the room was used, originally intended as a site for lectures and scientific demonstrations, and over the years, it evolved into a space where artists, students, and scientists from across New England gathered together to discuss and debate an increasingly wide-ranging collection. And tonight we're going to focus on and going to have the opportunity to experience firsthand one of the most exciting moments in the life of this room, because every year in the course of what were called his experimental lectures, the Harvard professor of natural philosophy would pull the shutters closed, darken the philosophy chamber, and use an instrument like this one, a magic lantern, to project images onto the walls, moving images, images like these extraordinary slides of different astronomical phenomena, which you can see projected upstairs. Here are the planets revolving around the sun. Here's the greatest of the bunch, the Earth and the zodiac signs revolving around the sun. And the lantern and these slides come to us from our speaker's collection, Richard Balzer, and it is my privilege to introduce Richard. When we had lunch yesterday and I asked him, how would you like to be introduced? And he sort of shrugged and smiled and then told me this amazing and riveting story about his path, the many twists and turns in his career, from law school to published documentary photographer, author of multiple books, to legal aid lawyer, to the Kennedy School, where he's now a senior fellow. But those are just the day jobs, because Richard is also an authority and one of the preeminent collectors of magic lanterns and other optical toys from before 1900, and he is a passionate and curious student of all forms of visual entertainment. And he explained to me that his interest in this material originated 40 years ago in a setting just like this, where he serendipitously happened into a magic lantern show. So we could have some future aspiring collectors in the audience. And Richard, as I said, very generously loaned several works from his collection to the exhibition. He taught us a lot about magic lanterns and slides. And tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome Richard to the Harvard Art Museums to bring a piece of the 18th and early 19th century alive in the Grand Illustrated Magic Lantern Show. So please join me in welcoming.
Okay, yeah. We'll see if this works. Welcome, good evening. Welcome to a Magic Lantern Show. You may find some curious and interesting things happen this evening. So this is the wonders of digital images you can create an effect that actually you could create in the 19th century. So this is actually a print from 1800. It was called Cubit's Magic Lantern. I figured I could name it after myself. And this slide is called the Curioscope, or the Dancing Skeleton. It's from 1865. So this is 30 years before movies, and it has animation. And it is like a little movie. And with the digital, I've actually given you what is a phantasmagoria effect. And what I've just seen by looking at you is I'm clickerless. So I better get my clicker. It's not your fault, it's mine. Pretend the slides are moving, okay? So there are going to be 3 parts of the show tonight. One's a little chat or talk, which is not usually good to do, but I saw at least one person likes to take notes, and so I thought I'd create some material that he could take some notes with. Then I think the real reason you're here is to see a magic lantern show. So I brought some slides, and I brought a lantern. This lantern is actually an English lantern from 1880s. It's a biunnial lantern, which means it's 2 lanterns. It's able to create dissolving effects, and we'll use it to do a show. And then I did a month and a half ago, I was in England, and I did a little political show on my views using magic lantern slides, my views about the Brexit vote, and my views on the new Trump presidency. Ethan thought maybe you'd like to see at least what I did to show a show about the Trump presidency, right? So we'll see if this works. So the magic lantern's been around for more than 350 years. It was a ubiquitous form of entertainment, education. This is a very early print by Athanasius Kircher, or Kircher, depending on which way you like to pronounce it. It's from his 2nd volume of Ars Magnus. It's 1671. He did a volume in 1646, but it doesn't have this image. And it basically shows the material of a magic lantern. It needs a lens, it needs some light source, and it needs a slide. So for a long time, people thought Kircher was the inventor of the magic lantern. Like most of these things, several people were working on ideas in a similar time. What we now know, it seems like a Dutch scientist, Christian Huygens, was probably the inventor of the magic lantern in 1658. So the lantern early on was in the exclusive realm of the academy. It was only in the academy or in philosophy chambers where this was held, but it was too powerful an instrument to stay there. And it was still soon out into the streets, which interests me much more. So I wanted to show you a couple of really old lanterns. These are also in my collection. This is from 1735. And you can see the problem with it is it's a conical shape, which is very hard for a tin maker to make. By the end of the century, it's interesting, this is a similar lantern to the one I've lent to the art museum to use for an exhibit. This is called a bullseye lantern, and what they've learned is they just made it into a square shape, which made it much easier to manufacture and much easier to take around, right? So who took it around? Well, this is a very interesting print. Edward Kopp may tell you more about this, but this is a Bouchardon print from his Cries of Paris, which shows one of the few women lanternists that we know of. And the interesting thing about people who did cries, I don't know how many of you know about cries, they interest me a lot, which was these were street entertainers when people had a little money. So not only did you have your lantern, she's carrying a lantern in her back, and the box will have some slides, they often had music, even though the music was often not very good. And the purpose of the music was to make noise, so people paid attention to you. So this is one form of a traveling entertainer, and this is another. And you're going to see the similarity. He too is carrying the lantern on his back. He's got his box with his slides. He's got a music box. And in this one, he's accompanied by a child who's got a marmot, which would entertain people running around when you played the music. So if that's how you like your entertainment, obviously you're thinking of more kinds of entertainment than I am with that. All right. Now, the interesting thing is the first lighting source for lantern was sperm oil, and it's not a very powerful kind of light source, so you could not have a lantern show that was more than 4 or 5 feet from a screen. They would come in, someone would pay them some money, they'd go into a family's house, they'd hang a screen, and they would do a show. And clearly the images would not have been that clear, but this is an artist's rendering of what a show would be like. And a lot of the early figures were demons. People were interested in being scared. Demons were a good thing. This culminated in one of the things that interested me most is a form of magic lantern entertainment called the phantasmagoria. And all the phantasmagoria really means is rear projection. But the show, and the Belgian magician Robertson was probably the premier presenter of these entertainments, were to scare people by calling up phantoms. And he did it in an old church convent, and he had people come down in the dark. He'd have glass harmonica play. It would be totally dark, and these figures. And the thing that's different is tonight, you'll see me project from that lantern, so you have an audience. This is as a kind of performance medium. You can see the projector, the audience is there, and you see the screen. In a phantasmagoria show, the lantern is behind the screen. You can't see it. 2, all this shows on a desk. Usually they were on rollers, so that if you roll the roller back, the image seems to be coming at you. And so I thought I'd show you what that might feel like, right? Because I can't move that lantern on a trolley anymore. When I was younger, I could. So I'm going to try to show you what this would feel like. This is with digital magic again. This is my splicing together 2 slides. But if you had a phantasmagoria, that's what you would feel like in the audience. If it was totally dark, glass harmonica, it was made to make people faint. They liked to faint because then everybody got excited, okay? Now, we're skipping more than 100 years. We're now in the last half of the 19th century. I just wanted to show you a few lanterns. This one's a very colorful lantern, which is called the Pettibone Peacock. You can see why it's called the Peacock. It was actually used by the Masons a lot. And actually, all those designs are Mason designs. This is one of the nicest lanterns I have. It's a triunial. So that's a biunial, means it has 2 lenses. This is a triunial that had 3 lenses. And the whole idea of dissolves in movies come from the magic lantern. Because I could make a dissolve with that. And actually, I think we have a few dissolves, so you can see them when I do the show. And it's the idea of they're focused on the same point, and you could go from day to night or from spring to winter. And we'll see if we do that, right? Okay, so those are lanterns. This is called a child's lantern. In the 19th century, children's toys were often supposed to be educational toys. And although this is called a child's toy, it wasn't meant for children to have. This was for big children, called fathers, to buy for their children and keep for themselves. But children did have a lot of toy lanterns. They usually are much plainer. And you can see this harkens back to 100 years before, because it had a little wick, a little kerosene, and you'd light it, and you'd have the smell of the kerosene. It couldn't make a throw of more than 3 or 4 feet, but you could do a show. And in case you don't think there are very many, the biggest producer of these were Ernst Planck. And in 1900, they produced 100,000 units of the same lantern. So a lot of people were giving their kids these gifts to start little fires in their house. So it was very good. Now, this is a bigger fire. Like with the movies, how do you progress with the lantern? The lighting source had to change. You started with whale oil, then you had the argon lamp, which was a more powerful source. And then in the 19th century, and this would have been, you used limelight. To be in the limelight, and what you had was a piece of lime that was sitting on these jets. and then you'd have a mixture of oxygen and hydrogen against a piece of lime, which created a very brilliant light. The problem is it often created too brilliant a light, and so there are a number of fires created by mixing these together. But it was strong enough, and this is before the incandescent lamp, that you could have a magic lantern show where 1,000 people could be in the audience. And someone asked you, this is a big screen to fill. This is a very easy fit, screen to fill. That's why I had to move closer. This machine is built to fill much larger screens. Okay, now, to show you there was academic purpose to this. William Denton, a person you should know better, but none of you do know, who was a geology professor at BU in the 1870s and 80s, he did magic lantern shows. He also did them about the La Brea tar pits, which are some experiments, but he was a popular lecturer. And this is a course that he did, 6 shows in 10 days. You could buy tickets for the whole course, buy a ticket for one course, or skip them all and borrow somebody's notes, So somebody asked me about photography. Photography changed the lantern. I'm going to show you basically slides today that were hand-painted. They're much more expensive to make. Once photography came in, hand-painted pictures started going out, and people wanted to see photographic images of travels, explorers. And one of the explorers they seemed most interested in, I don't know how many of you ever read about Henry Stanley, but he's certainly a very curious person. That would be the best thing to say about him. But I also thought I would put this in because of his connection with Livingstone, because again, since we're at the former FOG, I thought I would show a couple of prints with lanterns in them that are satirical prints. So this is the first one. That's supposed to be Livingstone there as a missionary, trying to show the truth to the quote-unquote savages. And of course, they're horrified that someone, meaning Abraham, would be willing to sacrifice their own son. So they're just horrified that this is what religion is about. And to closer to home in art, this is one of my favorite prints. It's by Paul Sandby, and it is, to say he didn't like William Hogarth is to understate their relationship. And it's a print mocking Hogarth. That's supposed to be Hogarth sitting looking at his own art with his mouth open as a lantern and a slide coming through projecting an image. I thought since you came for the show, I will answer questions at the end and try not to be so flippant about it. But generally, how many of you are here to see some lantern slides? Raise your hands. Okay, then I think we should get to the show. Now, I have to tell you, these shows go better if you participate. Now, it's not an active anarchy, but participation. So you're able to do oohs and ahs. At some point, I'll ask you to clap. I would really, no, that's not for me. You can do that too. But it's a certain thing I want to do. You have to help me out with this, all right? Often, what I haven't done, because this goes to how people do shows. Some people think it's historical material, get out of the way, let the material speak. And some people think all the material was a prop for a showman. And the showman decided what, and you can easily decide which kind of show I like to do. So I'm going to do these, and I need you to participate. Help me out, people need help, you know what I mean? Okay, great. First, see, I could do that later. This is an old mind. It just works this way. Ethan, thank you for everything that you did, and thank you for putting on such a wonderful exhibit. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. Ethan took me around, and that was terrific. Ian, I want to thank you. You should thank your your dad. He's a terrific guy. He solved some puzzles for me last night, which was very helpful. And my wife, Patty Bellinger, is going to be my assistant. None of you know how funny that is. We'll see how that works out, you know? Okay. So if we can have the lights. Well, with all good shows, you should say to people, how do you do? So glad you're here tonight. What? It's a little too much noise. Who's talking? What? Silence! So now I'm going to show you actually see, you're allowed to say ooh with this one. It's a pretty good one. And wait, if this works, which who knows? I can't see. Yeah, here you go. So, these are called Chroma Tropes. And the reason they're called Chroma Tropes is they do an incredible thing. See, you thought that was incredible. Now wait, none of you who've ever seen a magic lantern show has seen this. That's not bad, huh? Okay. I need some help with this one. We're going to see the kinds of games Victorian children like to play. And I'm afraid they were sexist in nature. Stay. Okay? So the first was the kind of game young girls play. Jump rope. You're all familiar with it? Okay. She's a little slow. But wait a second, if you clap, she can go faster. Okay. She's pretty exhausted. Who is that young person laughing? I like that giggle. Okay. Boys, on the other hand, like to take their pets down by the water. It's very sweet. Now, I'll find who's doing that laughing. I like it. Okay, so our next slide is about going to the dentist. Who likes to go to the dentist? Okay, good. I'm glad everybody's being honest. But mothers need to say, it won't hurt when you go to the dentist. I promise, it won't hurt at all. Seriously, I was at the dentist last week, and it didn't bother me a bit. Well, the day came, he had to go to the dentist. Okay, with that applause, I think I'll stop the show. You know, it's got to be downhill from now. Who likes to go to the circus? Okay, this is the kind of audience I like. There you go. So, I'm going to show you some tricks. Some I'm going to have to warn you, don't try these tricks at home. Patty, I may need that because this is, yeah, but I need it on this side. Never mind. Okay, now. Yeah, if you hold this up just a little, right, like that. This is a very hard trick. It's never been seen here in Boston. Do you think he can jump through that hoop? Yeah. What do you think he needs? When I say 1, 2, 3, yell jump. When I say 3, say jump, all right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, jump! Now, you're such a good audience, I feel I should give you a chance. Who has ever seen a dog jump backwards through a hoop? You would be pretty impressed if that happened, wouldn't you? Okay, 1, 2, 3, jump! Okay. Oops. That's why he has to. Don't do this at home. I want to warn all the children. It's a children-friendly show. Don't try this trick at home. 1, 2, 3, ow! You can relax between, I'll tell you when I need it, so you don't have to get. Okay, let's see if we can get him in focus. Now this is pretty good. Ooh, uh-oh. He's stuck. Why don't we wait for a minute? Go sit somewhere else. I'll be fine. I'll get it to work. I don't want you to do that. Let's leave him for a second. We'll come back, see if I can get it unstuck. Uh-oh. Okay, I might as well show you. Who's ever seen a metamorphosis between a dog and a man? Okay. That'll get you barking. Okay. Oh! Ooh. Wow. Okay, he can go on all day. I've had enough of him. I have to apologize for this next slide. In the old days when circuses, we didn't have a lot of protection for animals. And one of the favorite forms of entertainment then, maybe some of you have seen it, but most of you probably haven't. Have you ever seen a goat fight? No? Who's never seen a goat fight? Okay, would you like to see a goat fight? Sure, might as well, okay? Hey, let go of me. What? Hey. Now, people were very patriotic back then, just like they are now. And they liked to let soldiers know how proud they were when they came to the circus. So they had 3 wise generals who everybody respected, who went off to war saying how easy it would be to win the war, how really easy it was going to be. And sometimes the generals were mistaken and came back home different. Okay, we're going to try these. If this works, where's the other one? So sometimes when I'm in a really good mood, I come home with a bouquet of flowers for my lovely wife. Don't you think that's nice? On a summer day, however, they can wilt away. Not bad, huh? Okay, you weren't impressed with that one. We'll have to try our... Okay, what's next? Christ. This is a tough audience now. See, you've had too much fun. That's the problem with starting too high. Lower your expectations. One of these you're going to have to like, seriously, or I'm going home. Okay. Pretty nice, right? You know. Okay, nothing's happened so far. This way. Oh, the wheel went around. Thank you, Dorothy. Okay, the wheel goes around, but you know, the weather changes. Okay. Wait, we're not done. So the snow comes. And winter's here. Okay, that one you liked, all right? Okay, if you like that one, wait for the next one. I just had a heart attack. My wife decided, might as well drop a slide. That would be a lot of fun. If this works, I'll be impressed. $1885. Are you done taking notes? Okay. Just want to make sure. You like to visit with our audience. Ooh. On a dark, scary night, the pirates sped by, but you ain't seen nothing yet. Ha, 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 ha. Because in its midst, when they left, get out. Now that's pretty good. How many of you remember that I said there was a slide called the dancing skeleton or the curioscope? Anybody? Okay, well, I just wanted to see if anybody's listening. I had to buy some time. Okay. So, this is an effect I've never shown before. It may not work. But then again, it may. So, wait. He's being joined by a fully clothed and just to show, okay. I need help with this one. This is probably the most famous slide, the magic lantern from sort of 18, no, I want the other one before, there's another. Okay, I'll do this. Sorry. And this slide is called the Ratcatcher. Who can make a noise snoring? Who can snore? Let's hear some. Let me have the other one. Okay. See, I like the ooze, but watch now.
What's the year of the effect, sweetie?
Sorry, this is probably made 1880 to 1890. Okay. We're going to take one breath. That's the end of part 2. Okay, my wife's going to try this so that I can go back up front. We'll see if this works. Let me have the... Let's give her a hand. Usually I'm in the audience when she's speaking. You know, I'll do them from here. I'll do this side, you can do that side. Let me have the first one. Okay, So, you have to hand them to me upside down. Now you put the other one in. I was thinking of Donald Trump's election, and what could I do as a mere magic lanternist? And I don't know how many of you have ever read Bruno Bellheim's The Power of Enchantment. It's a wonderful book. I was thinking about what kind of fairy tale could explain Donald Trump. And then I was listening to music one night.
Who's that I see walking in these woods? Why, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good. You're everything a big bad wolf could want. Listen to me, Little Red Riding Hood. I don't think little big girls should go walking in these spooky old woods alone.
And then I thought, this is the perfect story. There are moral lessons and political lessons. So I'm going to tell you, I've done it once in the UK and now for the second time in the US. Here is the political version of Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
So, Little Red Riding Hood's with her mother, and her mother says to her, I need you to bring these packages to your grandmother. You know she moved to the woods, far into the woods, because she doesn't have her documentation. And if they find her, they'll send her away. Don't talk to anybody in those woods. There are some really bad people and bad animals, and most people just don't get that they're bad. Off she went, waving goodbye to her mother, promising her that she would go to Grandma's. And who does she meet in the woods? The wolf. It's a big bad wolf. Almost everybody should be able to tell it's a big bad wolf. But the wolf was charming to her. Said, I understand you. I understand everybody. I can make your life better. I can make things happier. And a person who usually had some good sense had no sense at all. The wolf then said, where's your grandmother live? And instead of answering, none of your business, she told him. The wolf said, oh, I have to leave now. I have to go. Okay, you're supposed to put another slide in. Got to take this one out. And the wolf ran to Grandma's, rang. She let him in. Now, the only good thing for the wolf, he didn't kill Grandma. She was scared, she fainted. He was just locked her up, took another extra nightgown that she had, and jumped into bed. Push it. Did you change it? Huh? When Little Red Riding Hood came, she said, Grandma, what big eyes you have. Grandma said, they're the best eyes. They're simply huge eyes. They can see everything. They can see Russia from here. She didn't understand quite what her grandmother was saying, so she said, "Grandma, what big teeth you have." Grandma said, "Yes, they're sparkling white. They're the whitest teeth you've ever seen. I have these teeth changed every 2 years. They can chomp through everything." Seemed pretty odd to her. And then she looked at her grandma. She said, "Grandma, what small hands you have." Then the wolf got furious and said, "They're not small hands. They're really big hands, and they're big enough to choke you." Luckily, at that moment, a passive public finally awakened. Rushed in, but because we live in a democracy still, didn't kill the wolf, but beat it soundly. And now the question was what to do with the wolf. Luckily, a sideshow was coming through town. They sold the wolf to the sideshow where it would be muzzled so it could never speak again. And children could occasionally go and play with its hair. And that, my friends, is the real version of Little Red Riding Hood. Here's the other slide. Now, since Ethan borrowed most of my astronomy slides, I couldn't show them to you tonight, but I thought I'd end the show with an astronomy slide. Because these were wonderful, and these were made about 1850, and they were making astronomy slides as early as 1780. And you'll know what this is. Wait, it's not done. It seems to have missed. Luckily, good night, mouse. Good night, moon. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Are there any questions? Please, you have to speak up, or I have to come up to you. Or we have a microphone.
So I have a question about the special effects. When slides moved, we could tell that the rat might have been on a kind of wheel. Can you describe the various kinds of mechanisms that created the special effects?
Sure, if we have a couple of slides, I'll show you. If you could take a few out. So one that you were talking about, I won't use that one. They have rack work on it. So you have two slides. Sometimes the first one's fixed and the other is rotating. Sometimes the Chroma Tropes, those are two rotating discs. And this mechanism makes it rotate, all right? Whether it's one rotating disc or another. Okay, sorry. So you can see the rotation. And with the others, they're two rotating discs. The other kind of slides are called slipping slides. They have like a little slipper on them. No. Just the normal looking ones. Yeah. So, and this is a printed slide, the Little Red Riding Hood copy. So like most technologies, hand-painted was much more expensive than printed or decal slides. They made them cheaper and cheaper. So these were decals or printed. It's a cheaper process. And then you had a carrier, and British size were square, American size were wide. And then one other kind of slide. So this is a kind of, you'd have a lot of photographic slides like this. And those are the most ubiquitous that you'll find is photographic slides, either this size or another. And then they had all kinds of slipping mechanisms. So you have a piece of stationary glass and a piece of moving glass. And some of the slides I had 2 pieces of moving glass. The Swan had a lever. That Swan slide never went with that other slide. I mean, that's just the creativity. If you have enough slides, you think, what would work with the other? And I've never shown before the 2 dancing skeletons. But one of the things with a biunal lantern that you can do that you can't do with a single lantern is create different effects. And the snow slide is just a pierced paper, and it's on a roller, and when you make it turn, the roller turns and it looks like snow. Okay, any other questions, please?
What about the colored diamond one where there was the kind of stretching effect? What allows you to do that?
So most of these are called Chroma Tropes. There are 2 discs that move. Mostly they're symmetrical. This one's asymmetrical, so it creates different forms by being asymmetrical. Okay? Please.
These mechanized
Are you glad you moved?
I'm sorry?
Are you glad you moved your seat?
I had an excellent view of
Okay.
the slides and the presenter. On these mechanized slides, were they uniquely created for an individual show, or were these commercially available?
Mass produced. There were lots of shows. You could buy a catalog. So it's like everything else. Think of your Xbox or anything else. If they could sell you a lantern, you needed slides. When people got bored with your current slides, you bought more slides. So they have catalogs that would offer you all kinds of slides. Please. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah?
How, are those the same as the kaleidoscope? Are you looking around like this, like a little monoscope thing, or which came first? How old are those?
This is like the chicken or the egg? Who knows who invented the kaleidoscope? Okay, David Brewster in 1825. See, sometimes you need to know obscure facts, right? And the kaleidoscope came before the kaleidoscopic slides. So these are late, but I have some kaleidoscopic slides from 1840s, which are early, but it's still not as early as. I see a young hand there that's persistent. Yes?
Here you go.
Then I'm coming to you.
Did they really faint? The
Sorry?
people? Did the
Did people really faint? Yes, they did. But I was told before doing this show, please don't do anything that will make people faint here. So I've tried not to have you faint. Did you faint? Okay. Please, right here, there's a question.
What's your favorite slider?
What's your favorite slider?
What's your favorite slide?
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. You know, the problem when you have a large collection is every day somebody came over and asked me what were my 10 favorite things. I hate questions like that. So I said to him, today I'll show you 10 favorites. If you come next week, ask me again, I may show you 10 others. But I like the dancing skeleton a lot. Please. Sorry, I can't. This is my hearing, not your talking.
Okay. How do you maintain them? How is it?
So a lot of people who give
everyday
shows.
publishing?
I don't do shows so frequently. A lot of people who give shows now are making reproductions of the slides so that you don't do anything to them. If you don't leave the lights on that long, it doesn't really affect the color. And in all the years of giving shows, I've never broken a slide. So that's why when I heard a little sound, I was thinking, what's going on?
We have one over here.
Okay.
What first captured your attention with regard to these magic lanterns?
By the way, I know you have a microphone, but it doesn't mean you have to speak so low that someone still believes you don't have a microphone.
What first captured your attention with magic lanterns? When was that, and when did you begin collecting?
Okay, it's a boring story. So my daughter's here, and she was not even born yet. My son's here too. He was not thought of yet. We were living in England. I had a grant to study industrial democracy, so what does this have to do with anything? And an English friend said, come to an auction with me. There was a lantern for sale. I'd never seen a lantern, but there were slides of China from about 1880. And I was interested in them because I thought they were pretty racist. And I thought, more as an anthropologist, this would be of interest to look at what kind of views people were giving of other countries. So I bought it, knowing nothing about it. And then about a month later, I was invited to go to a Magic Lantern show in Birmingham. And I thought I'd go to sleep. And I saw a show that someone did circus slides. And my mouth never closed during the entire show. And then I was hooked. That's how these things start. All the way in the back. We'll let you go in a minute, because this is a long evening, right?
So you showed us a wonderful political slide, or political show, with your Little Red Riding Hood. I wonder if any of these Magic Lantern shows in their time were ever used for political purposes, or was it strictly entertainment?
You know, I don't know. I've seen some scripts from lantern shows, and I would say the preponderance of lantern shows were people who weren't that inventive. They bought some slides and they got a script from somebody and they went through the script. But it's, again, here's my view. If you could have 18th century sensibilities, you could sit for a long time and listen to people drone on about something. I think it's really hard to try to have people cast back. So even when I'm showing some story slides that I have the story, I cut the story way back. I think there were always entertainers who thought they were the entertainment, and they would have done political things. And even the Phantasmagoria show was politically a very risky thing, because in France, he was calling up some of the figures from the French Revolution, which the authorities didn't like, and they finally closed the show. Two more questions. I think we're it, and I'll stay here for a few minutes. One over here and one over here. You're going to be the one over here.
So it's very apparent that you needed a great showman to go with the slides, because you have time to fill and the story is not spelled out. And as we moved through to greater technology, did the showmen, do we have any record of them lamenting technology taking over their role, or is there any?
I don't know. I have a different theory. I think people were so starved for seeing something outside their ordinary lives, which were so small, that they would listen to anybody. They didn't have to be entertaining. I'm also interested in peep shows, and I can tell you I know a lot about peep shows. These were boxes where you could take a view of a different city. They would lie about what view you were seeing. They would make things up, and I think they didn't have to be interesting. I think people just wanted to be entertained, and it's like going out and wanting to be out. So I don't think they lamented. I'm sure when new technology came in, people always have lamented. I used to make my living doing this show, and this show is no longer possible. One last question. It was you, the gentleman over here. Here, I'll give him the mic. Just hand it this way. Then you won't have to step over people. And if I'm standing next to you, I probably won't need you to speak in the mic. Yes, go ahead.
Just
so they can hear you.
Two quick questions.
Two questions.
Yeah.
One question, two.
Yeah.
Okay, go
Were there any attempts at using stereographic photography? Or, I don't even know if it's possible to project stereographically or not. And the other one is there still the Magica Laterna in Prague?
The question to the second one's easy. Yes, there is. It's a theater. It doesn't really do magic lantern shows. And the question on the first, do you know stereographic? So stereos are dual cards. There are ways to project them, but they didn't project them in magic lantern shows. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.